Hey, welcome Hairbrain Nation. Julian Perlingiro here for another series of the Classic Cutting Foundation. I have Mr. Randy Taylor behind the scenes. He's going to be filming. He's going to be feeding your questions. So keep them coming, guys, throughout the episode. So today what we're going to look at a short lady's crop. All right, when I use the term crop, what I'm talking about is cutting the hair down quite short. All right, and it's a term that goes back from my Sassoon days. And something that I think is kind of universal. We could also use the term pixie. We could also just look at it in a technical sense, which is going to be a short layered haircut that follows the head shape with a very natural, slightly scissor over combed outline. All right, so now with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start through the top. I'm going to get my proportion. You can see I'm taking my section, combing all the hair.
Everybody's saying hi, Chang.
Nice guys.
Juan.
Yeah, I was talking to Randy a little bit earlier, and I feel like I haven't seen Randy in quite some time. We've both been on the road busy doing different things that we'll kind of get into while we're doing today. But back on track, back doing the Facebook Lives and sharing the foundation that made craft hairdressers really understand their craft as much as possible. Okay, so now starting out, I'm taking my length, like I said, quite short, lifting that straight out from that center section. I'm going to start a little bit longer. I want to see what the hair is going to do, see how it's going to react. All right, so it's laying down pretty well. Make sure that I'm, looking for any awkward growth patterns, any awkward jumps within the hair.
Got a hi from Ronnie.
Nice.
Ronnie King.
I feel like I'm seeing all my old friends after, taking a little time on the road, which has been fun. We just got done the show season. I don't want to say it's finished, but, it's starting to get towards the end of the show season.
You going to premiere?
Yep, I'll be in Orlando with my friends from Sport Clips.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's going to be really fun. I actually just spent 4 days out in Austin, Texas, technically Georgetown. Working with the team out there, which has been great. So I think Orlando is probably the last really big one before the summer hits.
Mario is asking, why start in the center? Unique approach. What prompted you to start there?
Well, what I'm thinking is I'm removing weight, all right? And everything's going to be kind of form-fitted to the head shape, so what I like to call head hugging, right? So by starting in the center, I can really start to see the shape of the head, getting the haircut to tune in with the shape of the head. But then also, I'm looking for where the most awkward growth patterns usually are. In through the crown area, in through the front hairline. Now, by all means, was it Mario?
Yeah,
Mario, you could start this in a lot of different areas. And it's just really, I think, finding the area that's going to make most sense for you. I could do a very similar look and start through the sides, and I do sometimes. I would normally start on the sides if I wanted to perhaps leave the top a little bit longer, but I know I'm taking it down, right? So I'm going to take it down. I'm going to start right from the top, get that length in, see how the hair reacts, and then roll with it.
Marina says hi from Italy.
Awesome. Hello, Marina.
It's back, right?
Yeah. I was actually just in Italy. And I was there actually for 2 weeks on vacation. But now you have to realize, the only people I know in this world are hairdressers, right? So I was there with my hairdressing friends out there in Rome and in Florence. And, I had a great time. I'm already making plans to go back next year.
You take your photographer with you.
I have to take Randy to document the trip. Help me eat some pizza. All right, so you can see, again, the hair's laying down really nice. Taking the sections from the crown through to the forehead. I'm still combing up, so I'm standing on the opposite side so that I'm pulling the hair towards my body. You noticed I lowered the stand, which would, equate to lowering your chair if working on a client in the salon, so that I can really get on top of it and see what I'm doing. But by standing on this side, it just allows me to pull it into the center just slightly, right? Because the head's on a curve here. Now, even though I'm working with more of a head-hugging shape, Sometimes you'll get a flatness through the parietal ridge, which you want to try to fill in with a little bit of weight. So by combing it slightly up, it allows me to fill that in. Once I pass the parietal ridge, then I can go into the side area, right? But I'll do both sides of the top first.
You're calling this a lady short layer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you call this.
Yeah, I mean, in a technical sense, you know, I would refer to it as a lady short layer. You know, fad word, you know, I would refer to it as a crop, C-R-O-P, which goes back to my Sassoon days. And, you know, we also have some, you know, fad names, Pixie, things like that, which I think are all great. And, you know, use whatever term is going to relate most to the client that you're working with or most to the audience that you're teaching, right? You know, so, but in a technical sense, yes, a short, layered haircut, basing most of the angles off of following the curvature of the head, you know, so we're looking at like a 90 degree straight out, round head hugging layers. So this is going to be my last section through this side of the top. And you can see, I'm going to hold this here, Randy, and spin. Mm-hmm. So you can see my elevation is coming up, but it's not up square, right? So I'm keeping a little bit more curvature to the head shape, which is going to give me a softer, more feminine look to it. If I was cutting a men's square haircut, I'm going to extend that up even further, right? So that I create that flat line from center to parietal, where this just has a little bit more curve, which tends to give it a softness to it. All right. So first side of the top, we're cool. Like the length, it's laying down nicely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that same guideline from the center, and I'm going to start to work through the opposite side and work on getting a consistency within the haircut. Now, I've already established the guideline from the crown to the front. Now, I'm using that guideline, but you'll notice my cutting now comes from the front to the back. All right, so people might say, well, could you start cutting from the front to the back? Yeah. So let's say I had a situation where the growth patterns in through the front hairline were quite jumpy. To get the right length, I might start on this side first because I'm immediately cutting that hair around the face first. Whereas if I notice that the crown area is a little bit jumpy,
tricky,
I'm going to start here to get the length right. All right. So, I mean, there's a reason for everything, guys. Everything matters. There's a reason for everything. But once you understand the little things like that and you start to think about them, you realize, you know, like the question that we had earlier from Mario, you know, why are you starting on the top? And I was saying, you know, I could do a very similar look based on the head shape, based on the texture, based on the length. I may start in the sides, right? You know, but it's having that understanding of the fundamentals, you know, and that's why we spend so much time, you know, working on the fundamentals to have a really good understanding of what we're doing, why we're doing it. Once
Marina
I think
from Italy asked if you would cut a mullet sometime.
yeah,
That should be a good way to start a mullet.
I would definitely start my mullet right here.
You could just like stay on the top. And
Yeah, and then
redirect
you know
everything
pull everything back. You
and
get
pull
kind
everything
of
forward.
yeah, you get like that kind of like David Bowie mullet. Yeah, but no, I'll try to work that in. That's always I love a cool mullet.
Yeah.
All right, again, just looking to see the shape that I'm cutting, taking my sections from the back towards the front. And this is going to be about my last section. And again, noticing that the over direction isn't up square. I am following around the head shape on the curve, just slightly. And my over direction, you know, the more width that I need to create through this side area, right, and through here, the more I'm going to over direct towards the center. You know, so that's based on the head shape. If I had a head shape that was narrower through the parietal and a little bit kind of pointy through the top, to compensate for that, I'm going to do an opposite shape, right? So I'm going to cut it a little shorter where the head shape's the widest and leave a little bit of width, right? So nothing ever really follows the head shape. Unless you're like Randy and myself who have perfectly shaped heads, we can just shave our hair off and look awesome. right?
Jahari says you should be working, but he can't resist watching you cut hair.
So I apologize to your client, bro. All right, so now, and hey guys, just so that you do know, you can come back. Because I know a lot of you guys are watching. You can come back and watch later, but it's always fun watching it live.
This actually looks good already.
It's very kind of starting to get cut. Once I cut this, we got that mullet you're asking for, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to start to work through the sides using my guideline through the top, right? So my sections are going to be slightly diagonal, but primarily vertical, right? So vertical sections are more conducive to layering. They give you an easier, more efficient way of layering, but still at an angle because I want it to follow the curvatures of the head. Whereas if I was doing a square, I'd be more true straight up and down, right? So, where do you want me to go?
180.
Okay, cool. Right, so now here, taking that section, and I'm going to use that guideline from the top, and then start to layer this into the side. So working inside my palm now is going to let me tuck that hairline in just a little bit, right? So I'm not going to extend it and pull it out to keep it longer. I'm just going to tuck it in a little bit, and then follow my section back, over direct, slightly forward, but you see I get the guideline clean first, and then I comb towards the guideline to get the over direction just right. And then follow that down and just very slightly, again, just relaxing the wrist to sit that in a little bit.
You can add that to your Facebook Live class. Put the cameraman on your elbow down side.
There you go. Yeah, I was telling Randy, we were just, doing a class on, how to, do a Facebook Live and all the different things that we need to consider with the camera angles and things like that, so that we can be as visible as possible, right? So
Francesco's asking what length scissors you prefer.
Well, these ones, this is probably my go-to, about a 5.5.
Those are the Gold Pig?
Yeah, so these are the Gold Pig, my limited edition that was made by BMAC. Cool. All right, so these are a 5.5. I like a straight. Now, it doesn't mean I'm opposed to offset, things like that. They're cool, but these are my go-to, right? And then from there, I would use things as like a specialty scissors. So I have longer scissors that, I may use for one length blunt lines, for scissor over combs, things like that. But when I'm doing detail interior work, 5.5. So here, I spun around, Randy, so we can really show that angle. Mm-hmm. And I can just show that my knuckles are just resting in just a little bit. So I can just feel the ear. And then tucking that in right into the hairline. And you can start to see how that shape's building up, right? So it has a little bit more width to the haircut in this area where the parietal is, where it tends to be flatter, but still on a curve, not square, right? So that would be very masculine looking. So this is going to give it just a little bit of softness. All right, so what I'll do now is I'm going to start the other side. All right, and with this, I'm going to take the same sections. Now, the only thing that really changes is my hand position. So with my hand position on this side, you'll notice that my fingertips are what's angling in now, right? So on the one side, I'm cutting up, so I have to flip this hand over, right? Because the scissor's coming from underneath. On the first side, I'm cutting with my fingertips up because the scissor's coming from the top down, right? So we learn to, get the appropriate finger angle that's conducive to what you're trying to do. Getting the guideline from the same place through the top, and then working that in to the hairline. Making sure that blends really nicely. All right. And then once I'm happy with the guideline, doesn't mean I might not need to adjust it a little bit, but I'll get a few sections in, so you can see just combing that hair out of the way. Getting my guideline now from the front and from making sure it blends into the top. and then following that through.
Logan says, "Hey, Julian from Grand Rapids."
Oh, cool!
Excited to look back at this cut.
Nice.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, I was out there with Logan not too long ago, a couple months ago, and we did a class out there in the Grand Rapids. Had a great time. It was a little bit cold for me, but aside from that, we had a wonderful time. All right, so over directing slightly forward, then making sure that blends in, not only to the guideline in the front, but making sure it blends into the top length. All right, making sure that's really nice and even and clean. And then this is going to be my last section. And then I'm going to check the balance before I go on to the back, right? Because you notice, I wanted to get a few sections in before I go back through, check the balance. A couple different ways that I'll show you, how to check it.
Dominic says, "Hey, Julian, hello, Hairbrain, welcome back."
All right, thank you, Dominic.
And Logan is highly suggesting getting you into the salons for one-on-ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Logan. Yeah, so first check, guys. So people say, how do you check the balance, right? How do you get your guideline from side to side? All right, so when we're starting on the top, the first thing is to get a nice symmetric shape from the center to a certain point of the head shape. Now, once we go to the side, on the first side, I'm looking at that point through the top to give me an estimate. But it's still, about making sure that it works with the face shape correctly. You can see that I'm placing the back of my knuckle onto the cheekbone, right? So that I can feel the face shape, right? So that I have a connection to it. And then I establish that guideline. Once I'm happy with the length on the first side, I'm going to work that through to behind the ear. Then I came over onto the second side, and I took the guideline from the top at about the same point, hopefully, right? And then work that through the same way. Now, once we get to this point, you have to visually check, right? So I'm going to look in the mirror. I'm going to take it, go like, all right, cool, it looks good, it's looking balanced.
You got one over here now.
Yeah, I have one over there now. Now from there, I'm going to start to technically check it with a cross check, right? So I'm going to pull out, start to lightly just clean up any inconsistencies with the edge, but I'm also looking and memorizing the shape that I'm cutting, right? I'm looking at the distance that I am away from the head shape.
Hi from Rick Bennett, too.
Rick, what's up, man? I haven't seen you for a little bit of time. Rick, great hairdresser, known Rick for many years out in Oklahoma. Now, when I'm working on this second side, I'm looking for the same qualities, right? So I'm looking for the distance. I'm looking at the shape to make sure the shape's the same. I haven't created that instrument that measures the hair perfectly to make sure, like a computerized version of it. So yeah, you have to use your eyes, guys. This is an art form. It's like if I'm a painter, I'm using my eye to create what I'm painting. With this, I'm using my eye to create the overall shape. Right? And then, it's doing it to the best of your ability and making it look as clean as you possibly can and as balanced as you possibly can. All right, so happy with that. So just comb this down. I always try to keep it looking pretty, as I'm going. I don't want it to look a mess for my client, because especially, she had a bob before we started, right? If I'm doing this big of a change and it looks awful for 45 minutes while I'm cutting it in her head, it's psychologically, not good. All right, so here's the start of my mullet merino. So I could layer that through and just leave the bottom long. We had a question earlier, a request on doing a mullet.
Mullets come in all shapes and sizes.
Oh, they sure do. They sure do.
Freestyle from here.
Exactly. So now I'm going to start to take my sections through the back, still at that same angle, right? Yep. Yeah. Well, actually, let's do this, Randy. And now I'm going to use the guideline again from the top. I'm going to use the guideline from the side. Make sure that blends in. You see a nice clean line. Also, guys, look, we have to open and close the scissors. We have to cut with authority, right? I'm not nibbling at it, right? I want to get as clean of a line as possible. Now, once I get below the ear, I don't have a guide through the side anymore, right? So once I get to about this point, I don't have any guideline in front of the ear, right? In front of the hairline. This is my first section through. But now I'm looking at the head shape, and I'm going to take my knuckles and now angle them in further, right? So that I start to take that in so that the length follows the curve of the head, right? So just because my fingers are angled in does not make it graduation. Because the head shape is angled in, it's still following the curvature of the head. Now, once the finger extends further than the curvature of the head, now I'm graduating, right? So just that subtle difference, if we're looking at it really technical for those craft hairdressers out there, right? For all of us hair nerds, right? So once I go past the angle of the nape, graduation, layers. So now, continuing those sections all the way from the top through to the bottom. Now you'll notice I'm going to follow the head shape through the top. I have to lift out away from the head where my knuckles are. Then as it starts to curve in, I'm going to start to angle in, follow the curvature down into the nape hairline. So again, just a nice little head hugging layer following the curvature of the head. And now I'm going to continue working that through just past the center back. Now I do need to be aware of how far I pull it forward. So my over direction forward is going to be how much weight or length I maintain in through the crown area. You know, so if I had a head shape that was a little bit flatter in through the crown, I may comb it slightly more forward through that area and then start to tuck in to the nape. But if the head shape's relatively rounded, then I can keep a little bit more of a consistent over direction forward, right? So again, you know, it's not necessarily following the head shape identically unless the head shape is nice and rounded and oval, right? So I need to look at the head shape, see where it's a little bit flatter.
They said it's starting to look like Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones.
Oh, I was going to say, oh, okay, now I know who you're talking about. I'm like, sorry guys, I don't watch Game of Thrones. I'm one of those, I guess, minorities in the population that has seen very, very, very little. But she's kind of hot, isn't she? Yeah. I do know what she looks like.
Regina said this cut is perfect for thick hair. She's asking, how do you feel about it with fine hair?
Well, I mean, I think fine hair, it can work really well. Now, your choice of length might be a little bit different. You might keep it a little bit longer. Or sometimes, you know, you might go a little bit shorter depending. But, you know, I'm a true believer that you can do a lot of different you can do a haircut on a lot of different textures of hair, but it's learning how to just make those slight adjustments. So I might keep the length a little bit longer on finer hair. That would kind of fill it in so it didn't look too sparse if it gets too short.
Yahari's going to cut some hair.
Yeah.
So you have to go.
Sorry, dude. See, I'm keeping the anticipation going, man.
Fine hair that lays down, this does really well with.
Yeah.
Like if it's that kind that stands up like baby hair.
And again, that's what I mean. It's like we can generalize, and you know, I mean, I love generalizing. It's all right, you know, because I can look at different scenarios. But a lot of times when you take someone with fine hair and you cut it short, man, it thickens up pretty darn quick. Mm-hmm. You know, but like I was saying, if it's sparse, if the density is sparse, and you cut it too short, it can get a little bit see-through. You know, that's also, you know, a great opportunity to beef it up with some color. You know, do some color to get the hair a little bit more dense. This is one of my favorite things is, you know, like a bleach blonde crop.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it is so stunning,
So cool.
you know, on a woman.
Herman is just commenting that you always help him fine-tune his craft.
Thanks, Herman.
Herman from LA.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir.
Herman, apparently there's only one Herman in Julian's life because he knew exactly what I was talking
Oh,
about.
yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I remember, you know, hearing the comments, and I remember, you know, the names that we hear over and over.
Great
And
names.
um,
I'm miserable with names.
And, you know, I mean, I know from the Instagram posts and the tags and the things like that. That's another thing, guys. I took a little time off from Instagram. You know, it was time for me to kind of reinvent myself. And I think, you know, as artists, we need to, you know, keep in mind that we do need to take a little bit of time, reinvent what we're doing, relook at what we're doing, rethink about it, and then come back fresh, right? So, you know, like I was saying, you know, Randy and I, and a lot of us were very busy, you know, during the peak of the show season. You know, there's been a lot of travel. There's been a lot of classes, things like that, which was a perfect time to, you know, to reinvent ourselves. I have some, you know, new people that I've been working with, and I'm really excited about, you know, exposing and bringing out into, you know, the social media and the education world. You know, some great colorists, some great cutters, some great colorists, you know, that you're going to see very soon. Coming to you very soon. Yeah. All right, so just visually checking the shape. You know, love the texture. This is a great length because it's still long enough to kind of, you know, rough up a little bit in through the crown. You know, I always like a little bit of a growth pattern there because, you know, it's a perfect area and a great way to create volume in through the crown.
Maybe we ought to do something where people tag you on Instagram in their posts and you find somebody, and then, I mean, they have to be able to teach, but you could host them here in LA on a Facebook Live.
Yeah, always, you know,
That'd be fun.
always, you know, open
Like
to
a guest on your Facebook Live.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome. See, Randy's opening up the door for you guys, you know. And I think, you know, as a hairdresser, we have to put ourselves out there. You know, how do you get opportunities? Well, you make them. You know, you get yourself out there and you use the different forums that we have. You know, make sure you do your posts on Hairbrain. Make sure you tag people, you know, on Instagram. On my Instagram, there's a couple different, you know, social media sites that pick up my work and then expose it, which then gets me to a crowd that I may not have ever known or seen before. You know, so we start to get into seeing and, you know, meeting new people, which is great. That's what I also love about the shows. You know, the shows are a great way for us to network ourselves and to meet people that we may have never met before. You know, and it's like, I get it, guys. You know, it's nice to see people you haven't seen in a while, but if you're sat at the bar with the same old people every show, you know, you're not meeting new people, right? And that's, I think, as nice as it is to see people that we haven't seen, you know, we want to always meet new people in the profession. And, you know, what I think for the people that we don't know, make sure you come up and say hi. I mean, I love that. You know, sitting there hanging out, I'm at a show, come up, man, say hi, tell me who you are, where you're from, what you're doing. You know, I know Randy's the same.
You always need models for your first stage because you cut so many.
Always, you know. You know, I mean, all of us, Randy, Gerard, you know, and many, many, many others, we feed off that. All right, so.
You keep seeing the flashes of light?
I thought that was
just in my head.
I was going to say, I thought it was in my head, but maybe it's really happening.
I thought maybe you had a paparazzi behind us.
You know what? There might be one out there. Okay, so here's where we're at, right, guys? So now I'm going to start to work this side. So I worked the first side just past the curvature. Now I'm going to start to work this side back into it. Same thing as when I went through the sides. Now my hand position, my fingertips are going to be cutting down. I'm going to be cutting up. But I need to start where I have my guideline, which is from the top of the ear through to the curvature of the head. So I'm going to take that, get it out of the way. And then I'm going to section this off because I don't have a guideline down here yet. So I initially establish my guideline from the area in front of the ear. And now I'm going to follow that up. You can see that it's blending not only into the guideline prior, the section previous, but it's also blending into the top. Once I have that blended, well, now I'm going to start to angle in. This side can be a little bit trickier because my hand gets in the way, right? When I'm doing it on a person, I might tilt the head away from me a little bit forward and down, and it gives my hand the place to go. But it's also easier, to rest the hand against the shoulder and push in a little bit where, the doll heads don't give as much. So this side is a little bit trickier to get your hand in.
Well, Eileen said she just signed up for a class with you in June.
Oh, awesome.
And then Cindy's asking, I see your questions through the back are slightly curved. What would the difference be if these sections were straight vertical?
Well, when we think about our sectioning, the section is your roadmap to the shape and the technique that you're using. So a more purely vertical section I would use for a more square line, right? So because this is a little bit more of a curve, we think about diagonal sections following the curve of the head. Completely vertical sections oppose the curvature of the head. So for square layers, vertical sections, horizontal cross-check. For a more rounded head-hugging layer, slightly diagonal sections. Because, here, this is a little rhyme for you. All right, the sections tell the fingers what to do. The fingers tell the scissors what to do. The scissor tells the hair what to do. Right? So they all have to work together. So whatever you're cutting, the section should be, not always, nothing's ever always, the section should be, in a classic sense, parallel to it. That's the way we get consistency. Yes, Randy, you didn't know, I also do nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
I'm so easily amused.
Me too, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why we get along.
Yeah.
All right, so making sure that blends in. Following this through all the way into that hairline. And remember...
Hey, James Alba.
Hey, what's up, James? It's the reunion of the Classic Cutting Foundation today.
Just saw James in Iceland.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we were hanging out. Where were we, man? We were in Vegas. Had a good time there. It was during Intercuffior. And it was also the Sport Clips big show of the year.
In Iceland.
Yeah, I know. I wish. I mean, I wish.
He was in Italy. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, No, let me make him feel bad. But hopefully next year it'll be in the cards.
He was roughing it with Italian food and
yeah, really good pizza, really good wine. My people.
James was having 5 a.m. call times.
Exactly. See now let's see who's smart. I was sleeping in and having siestas. Oh, funny. James is a great hairdresser, guys. If you guys don't know him, he's from Canada. He is part of our Davines team. Great hairdresser, really nice guy. Definitely look him up on social media. Maybe James, plug yourself. Put your Instagram up there for everyone to see.
On MySpace.
Yeah. And this is what's great about having a community. Mm-hmm. And, it's like people ask me what my Instagram is all the time. And, hey, I'm happy. I'm happy that people do that. But I always say to them, follow who I follow.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Because the people I follow are like-minded that I admire. Mm-hmm. And I get to, work with some great people, throughout. So
James' Instagram is method_education.
There you go. Thanks, James. All right, so it's just starting to get around to the center back. Now, what we'll notice is, as I start to cross over, I want to start to look for the blend from side 1 to side 2, or side 2 to side 1, I should say. Making sure.
So I just noticed that you switch from palm to palm to over knuckle. How do you know when you need to do that?
Once I feel this get too high, right? And I'm working inside the knuckles, I would say 95% of the way up, but then just that last, I'm making sure it blends. Because that's too high, right? I can feel, once my elbow gets above my shoulder, it's too high, so I have to release the pressure.
You start to
and
feel that
flip
muscle
over.
Start to spasm.
Yeah, exactly. And your body's telling you something like, hey, what are you doing? So you start to get a really sense of awareness of your body. Hand and body position are things that I focus a lot on in my beginning fundamental education. Even, I shouldn't even say that, because even in the more advanced classes, because a lot of times people haven't been exposed to the ergonomically correct way that we should work and cut hair so that we're not damaging our bodies, but also to help our haircuts come out more consistent. Because if we're in a really awkward position, it's really difficult to have a consistency in our finished result. So here, see where my elbow is. Now from there, I flip over, and it relaxes the elbow and allows my hand to control the hair more easily. Everything, like I said, everything matters, guys. There's a way, there's a method that has been developed over years, right? From when I started back in the early 90s in New York at Sassoon, things have evolved from that time. Things have moved on. Things have hopefully improved. And the way that we're educating the newer hairstylists in comparison, I'll spin around, in comparison to, the understanding of hair.
That hair color really pops on your shirt.
See that? It's all planned, Randy. The education has definitely, like I said, improved to get hairdressers to understand things that it took me years to understand in day number 1, right? And some of the things when I'm working, especially with the newer hairdressers, I'm exposing them to things that I wasn't exposed to because they weren't really as understood at the time. And we always need to be, I think, pioneering education and focusing on, well, how can we get there quicker, better, and more efficiently? You don't want to get there just quicker. It has to be better and efficient, right? So just looking to see that curvature, right? Making sure that the balance is nice from side to side. And just dusting the edge off, right? And if I see something, like let's say I saw something longer, well then, all right, well, let me go back. Let me take that section and see where it is. So when I am working in this method where I'm combing the hair, notice I don't let go. Lift up. Lift up. And I'm working through that shape, opposite angle. So the first angle was here. Now I'm working this way, opposite angle. I can do this because I'm not changing it, right? I'm just lightly dusting off any little inconsistencies within.
You had a lot of sleep last night. This looks really good.
Dude. I guess I got a lot of sleep. I got home last night. Like I said, I was in Texas, in Austin. Outside of Austin, technically, in Georgetown.
Some barbecue.
I actually did some really good barbecue. You know, and if you ever go to the Austin airport, they have some of the greatest music.
Oh yeah, they do.
Oh my God, it was awesome.
Austin's really cool.
Austin's a cool place, yeah.
Everybody's moving.
Yeah, well, that's what that could kind of take away. So, hopefully, it keeps its cool.
Yeah.
What do they say? Keep Austin weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, it stays weird.
Yeah.
If it starts to lose its weirdness, I'll move there and help bring it back. Exactly. But yeah, just great thing. I was out there with my friends at Sport Clips, working with their creative team on presentation skills.
Is that where their headquarters is?
In Georgetown, just outside of Austin.
All right.
Yep, just a little. I don't know if you would call it a suburb or whatnot, but just outside of Austin.
What a great place to have your headquarters.
Oh yeah, that's a great area. Yeah, so the balance is looking really good. So checking through, making sure everything is nice and even. What I want to do now is I'm just going to go through and dry it really lightly because I want to do some finishing technique for you guys. I'll get a little bit fancy. So I'm just going to use my comb down. I do a lot of my shorter blow dries like this with the comb.
Your one row brush?
That's my one row Denman brush right here. And that's the story that was told to me that I believe when, this was developed first with Denman and Vidal Sassoon. Mm-hmm. It was to mimic a row of combs because we comb wet hair, we brush dry hair. Yeah. So this is the one row, but it just glides through really easily. And I'm not trying to change the hair in any way, shape, or form. I want to allow it to do what it wants to do, and then I'll work on perfecting it from there. Looking to see the movement of the hair. That's about dry enough. Okay, so now start to do detail work, whatever is appropriate for the hair that you have, right? So a couple different things that I'm going to do. With the amount of hair, it is a little bit denser, so I want to work and remove some weight with slicing into the hair because it does look quite blunt through the edge. So I want to get the hair going in the direction that I want. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the scissor, I'm taking the back of the scissor, the dull part of the blade, and just following it through the hair. And if you notice, I'm not closing the scissor all the way because we can imagine what that would do. And it's a lot to do with timing. So the scissor has to open and close faster than the scissor moves, because if it goes slower, you're going to feel it drag. So the scissor has to open and close faster than it moves. And I'm following the head shape. So you see I'm working with the curvature of the head. And this is a great way to remove bulk, but maintain your shape that you created. Now, I started higher and worked through. Now I start in the middle area. So I'm closer to the edge. You also see I using this as a counter pressure, right? So this helps me feel the speed, and by putting that pressure, control it a little bit easier.
Hey, Michael Paulsinelli just said, hey brother, I missed you in Iceland.
Hey, what's up, Michael?
His show was off.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I was hanging out with Wayne, and Michael Paulsinelli is also one of our educators, stylists, extraordinaires with Davines. And Davines just had its worldwide hair tour in Iceland, which is, that's a pretty cool place, hey?
Yeah, I was editing that video right before we shot this.
Nice.
It's so good.
And how will people be able to see that once it's done, Randy?
Put it on Instagram. I'm probably gonna cut a longer version for IGTV, Facebook.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you can see just by taking that now and pulling it back, it creates a little bit of roughness. Yeah, it creates a bit of roughness to it. So, the softness, depending on what you do to it, can translate into texture. But again, using the backside, the dull edge of the blade onto the scalp, feeling the curvature of the scalp.
So close here, you might cut somebody's bangs at home.
Yeah, see? And then the amount of pressure that you use is going to be what determines how much hair, right, you remove. So the scissors move in a little bit faster. The opening and closing motion is moving a little bit faster than actually going through the hair, which is going to create some softness. Starting to get where I want it. Now just focusing on the edge.
You ever cut anybody's ear doing that?
No, but I poked him in the eye. No, I'm just kidding, guys.
What my friend did is he folded an ear over and then he cut the tip off.
Yeah, can't say I've done that. I've cut my fingers quite a bit, right? So now lifting up, and I'm working into the edge, right? Now the back of the scissor, you see how I'm backing up this finger just a little bit, and the back of the scissor is touching my middle finger, and then I'm closing it, and then making sure I don't go in far enough. But I don't think about I'm closing in, I'm closing out. I close it when it's at the right place, right? But as long as my finger's out of the way and I'm using the back of the blade, right, to touch the finger, I'm not going to cut myself. Now, yeah, in the beginning, you have to really be careful. And in the beginning, you may want to go a little bit slower. Not that I'm going fast, really. You don't have to go fast. You just have to be precise and consistent with what you do. Just getting the hair out of the scissor. Putting a little bit of olive oil on the blade, Still in my blood from Italy. Okay, so you can start to see that now. From there, I can come and look into the front. I would be using the mirror if I had one in the salon. And if I was in the salon, I'd stand here, put my finger on the chin so I can control the head, and then work in this way. All right, tilt the head a little bit. Again, control the head with my finger on the chin. I'm looking over a little bit more, but you have to imagine if I had a mirror in front of me, I'd be looking in the mirror and doing it this way, right? So I can see exactly what I'm doing and see the effect it has around the face. All right, so now in through the back. Similar. Now, I'm looking at the curvature of the head. I got to be careful not to cut into this area too much because I can flatten it down. So I'm looking at the curvature of the head and going just above the curve. And I'm going to start right there.
Whirls and all of that, do you just work with the direction that the hair is
work into the direction that the hair is growing. Because if you go against it, you can do that, but it's going to cut a lot more out. So you can see it's working with, and it gives that little bit of layering. I'm working at a 45-degree angle through. So I worked on this curve. Now I'm going to go on the occipital bone. Again, using my hand for back pressure. And then I'll go beneath the occipital bone. All right, comb that through. Now in here, I'll keep it that angle, I can lift up onto where the head's flat, and now I'm going to work into the edge this way. but I don't want to collapse it too much by cutting down into, the scalp area. Now I'm going to work this. So on this side of my hand, my palm is facing. Now I'm going to go backhand.
Cool. Mihai is asking what type of scissors those are.
These are made by a company called BMAC, which is a true Japanese scissor. I've been to the factory in Japan in Nagata, and they are handcrafted Japanese scissors. These are the logo, all right? So BMAC, you can look them up on the internet. At the Hairbrain Pro Shop, they have the Hairbrain version of BMAC. These are my limited edition Gold Pig for my Gold Pig education, right? And yeah, these are, oh yeah, it's hard to read that.
Oh, that's good.
There we go. So these are 5.5s. And also with BMAC, they have, a great range of prices. I believe the Hairbrain ones are about 4. Mm-hmm. These are about 5. I had to up you guys just a little bit.
Of course.
I had to stick it to Gerard. I'm like, my scissors cost $500. I'm just kidding, guys.
You guys are really competitive.
Yeah. All right, then in through the crown area again. I'm going to lift that up. There's my line. I'm going to break into that line a little bit, but still keep the integrity of it. Lift up again. Break into that line a little bit. Right. Still want to keep the integrity. Now I'm going to start to look at the hairline. And this will kind of finish off everything before I put some product in. So I'm going to lift that up so I can see. Right, so now I'm going to work into the natural hairline. And again, I'm using the back of the comb onto the skin. And as long as I keep my scissor at a safe angle and I don't go in too much, I'm not going to cut them or be less likely to cut them, because I don't want to say that you're not going to and then you call me up and say, hey, you said I wouldn't cut them. Comb this hair a little bit forward, just so I can get that edge. You can see the nice consistency of the density being broken up. Now I'm going to start to lift into it a little bit. So, scissor over comb, but cutting more with a pointing technique rather than trying to use scissor over comb cutting blunt. You can also use scissor over comb and point into it when you want something a little bit choppier, a little bit softer through the edge. And then again, lift up, work into the hair, point through, work into the hair, point it through. And you can see I'm just really sticking to the edge with that. I'm not going to go into it because I did a lot of texturizing internally already, but I want to work the edge a little bit softer. All right. So now I'm just going to get the little hairs out of there. It's good. If I was in the salon, I might rinse her off a little bit. Rinse the hair, get all the little hairs out, so when she goes home, she doesn't go to shampoo it and then have all this hair all over her sink.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's looking good. Nice little textured look.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see. All right, so this is Stavina Shine Wax. Just get it into my hands a little bit. Then I'm going to, gotta tighten that up. Then just start to work from the back through to the front a little bit. Give a nice shine, bring out, the natural variations of the color. Start out slow. Don't want to put, too much in at one point. Now that I have it from the back, I can focus a little bit more on the front and the sides.
So good.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for a model with hair like this because we're going to be doing a photo shoot pretty soon. And I was talking to one of the colorists that I work with, Roberta, and I was saying one of the looks we want to do, like a nice either bleach and tone or high lift blonde with a little crop shape, which was my inspiration, for what I did today. All right, so I think it came out really cool. Hopefully, it's a little bit tricks and tips, right? Working with the technique. Recap: I started through the top, taking the sections from the crown through, setting my guideline, then slightly over-directing the hair just a little bit towards the center to build a little bit of fullness over the parietal. Work the same through the other side, over the knuckles, over-directing a little bit towards the center to build the fullness. Once I did that on both sides, taking my sections vertical diagonal, then taking the guideline from the top, slightly tucking it into the hairline, right? And you can see, the fullness that I built in through here, right? So it has that little bit of fullness where the head tends to be a little bit flatter. Did that on the other side, spoke a lot about hand, body positions. Then from there, taking the sections diagonal through the back, right? You see it has this really nice head-hugging shape, but at the same time, it gives it a very feminine curvature to it, which I think is important, right? When we're cutting short ladies' haircut, that it still looks soft. Then from there, cross-checked, worked on a slicing technique, through the interior, pointed through the edges a little bit, and then I worked with my Davina's Shine Wax, to bring the texture out and to show the nice variations of colors that she has. So again, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed and got a little bit out of it today. Thanks, Randy, for filming, and we will see you again for the Hairbrain Classic Cutting Foundation. Peace.